to everyone who has joined the discussion on Talking Films Online tonight. Talking Films Online, or TFO in short, is an informal coming together of academics, teachers, students, researchers, filmmakers, and cinephiles interested in cinema. More importantly, interested in talking and writing about cinema. The online group came together quite spontaneously during the pandemic and lockdown in June 2020. Dr. Geeta Vishwanath and I have been coordinating the activities of TFO since its inception, with people like Sridhar, Paniraj, Ajanta Sarkar, Tarakeshwar VB, Yagnashri, Rasha, Madhurima, and many others who join the weekly discussions and enhance the quality of the discussion. So far, we have organized close to 200 online events, which include weekly discussions on a pre-decided film, besides a few month-long film festivals and discussions. For instance, this year in January, we had a Farmers Film Festival, and in March, we had a series of discussions on Kumar Shahani's films as a way of paying tribute to him. Sometimes various personnel from the film industry join our weekly discussions. For instance, we have had filmmakers such as Girish Kasarwalli, Amol Palekar, and Adur Gopalkrishnan join when we discussed their films. During June this year, to mark the 4th anniversary of TFO, we had organized the 4th smartphone short film competition for students between 18 to 25 years of age. And we had a grand awards ceremony where the winners of the competition were given their awards. Soon we are making preparations for organizing the first international seminar on Indian cinema in the digital era, continuities and discontinuities, in collaboration with FCT Baroda on September 30th and October 1st this year. Our aim is to get a conversation going around cinema and to get as many people involved in the process as possible. With all our events being online, anyone and everyone interested in cinema is welcome to our forum. We have a blog called talkingfilmsonline.wordpress.com, where we encourage all kinds of writings on cinema, from that of students and general film enthusiasts to the erudite scholar. We have a YouTube channel called Talking Films Online, where you can watch some of our discussions. We are on Facebook. TFO is a private group on Facebook, and we are also on Instagram and WhatsApp as well. This week's film, The Big Brawl, was suggested by Dr. Manu. Dr. Manu S. Kurup has been an educator for a decade, building and executing multiple curricula and content across prestigious institutions in Hyderabad, Telangana. Currently, he teaches and heads the English and Languages Department and designs and implements the Theory of Knowledge course at the Keystone School. He has a PhD on the topic, The Art of Trouble, Political Cartoons, Popular Culture and Translation from the University of Hyderabad, along with an MPhil and an MA in English. He finds training teachers and building teams as his passion. Manu is an avid reader of history, politics, and fiction. He's also a passive gamer and a film collector who occasionally writes provocative film reviews on social media. In fact, it was through one such fairly erudite discussion on Jackie Chan that I invited Manu to our forum. Thanks, Manu, for agreeing to be a part of this discussion. We have not had a full-fledged action film, leave alone a Jackie Chan film before on TFO. It's not a genre that I know very much about, and I'm really looking forward to listening to you and discussing this film. Over to you, Manu.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks, ma'am. It's very nice to be here. I was listening to you and talking about Talking Films Online, and I think I didn't know much about this, although I've seen occasional posts and all that. Now I'll start exploring more because there's nothing I love more than listening to films and being part of film discussions. It's really good. So, as ma'am said, this was all coming together from a Facebook post. and that is one platform I'm very much active in. And I was told that this is a very informal session, so I'm sure there's a lot of people, who can ask questions anytime. Probably make it a discussion that is worth everyone's time. And I must also thank Ms. Hariharan for being here. So today, as we mentioned, the big broad. So the question is why the big broad? So it's an average movie, and it's but it's also a landmark film when you consider the Hong Kong film industry. So this is why I wanted to talk about it, and I was looking at the entire Jackie Chan filmography, and I thought the big broad should be considered as a keystone. So why it should be considered that is my content based on. So let me start with identifying myself as an unabashed Jackie Chan fan, and being an 80s kid who grew up in the 90s. Jackie Chan is a big deal. By the mid 1990s, you have, especially in India, especially in southern Kerala, where I have grown up, it has access to a wide variety of media, the early on time. And by 1990, Jackie Chan also had created a large body of work, nearly 25 films in 12 years with a new style of action. Now, by that time, he also has had two unsuccessful attempts at making it big in the Hollywood. So, as I said, I'm still a huge Jackie Chan fan, and I used to follow his filmography, whatever, not in the right order, but whatever I could get my hands on. And this is where I started looking at, initially because it was all dubbed in English, I thought it was part of the Hollywood. And I couldn't be more wrong. So I started exploring later on, and I realized that there is a complete Hong Kong film industry which actually produces movies worth watching. They're all dubbed into English, and we get to see the English version. We don't get to see the Cantonese versions that Jackie Chan was made. So this is where my exploration started, and as you know, I got access to laptops and other technology. I started getting the original versions, and I started wondering why so much affiliation to, or affinity towards kung fu as an art form. Then I started looking at how Bruce Lee had incorporated it. So we'll go into that a little bit and see. So cassettes had started making an impact around that time, and Jackie Chan films were one of those readily available ones, with the sensibility of those early films being easily acceptable, because more than Hollywood films, these were watchable at home. Hollywood films were not. And one of the first or early Jackie Chan films that I watched was Half a Love of Kung Fu. Now, in this one, you can see a very conscious approach at developing the slapstick, acrobatic kung fu signature that we would see in his future films. Now, this was released way in the 1970s. So, in fact, one can even argue that Jackie Chan kind of blended his unique style into changing the very nature of kung fu films presented thus far to the world. So, Half a Love of Kung Fu, it parodied the serious, stoic nature of the kung fu films and made light-hearted comedy. So, as far as we know, the Hong Kong film industry kind of made kung fu a very serious art form and presented it to the American world. But Jackie Chan comes and he distorts the whole thing. He presents kung fu along with very funny storylines. Sometimes there's no storyline at all. Some of his early films are famous for that. Now, rewind a little bit with each Bruce Lee. Now, Bruce Lee, until his untimely death in 1973, he was only 32 years old when he died. He was the undisputed king of Kung Fu in Hollywood. Now, he was not entirely Chinese. He was born in San Francisco. He had American blood in him at some point. Now, he defied Asian stereotypes. He incorporated Chinese culture in a very stoic way and fashioned a new martial arts philosophy by blending Wing Chun and Tai Chi with the thrill and method of American boxing. He kind of furnished it for the American audience. But in all its essence, it was still Hong Kong. It was kind of, Hong Kong style free strike fighting thrown in for some kind of kicks. It immediately had takers in Hollywood. A lot of his early films worked. So because of that, he left a lasting impact on modern combat sports. Now, he also influenced a lot of actors who are still in the field. Like he started with Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal, who are no longer in the field. Jackie Chan, he influenced quite a lot. Jason Statham, Donnie and Tony Jaa, and Scott Adkins, who are very much making films even now. So we can see from the 1970s till the 2020s, there's a lasting impact left behind by Bruce Lee and his Hong Kong film culture that he nurtured. Now, out of all these actors from different parts of the world, perhaps Chuck Norris and Jackie Chan are the only actors who have worked with Bruce Lee and collaborated in any way in the making of a new martial arts system in Hollywood. Now, there are a lot of studies about Hollywood. There's a lot of thesis. There's a lot of books coming up, but you don't see Hollywood's merger with Hong Kong film industry or vice versa as a theme, as a discussion point anyway. It's a largely ignored area. So it's just like gamers have their own, you know, their own issues that they don't really talk about. Even the Hong Kong film industry, along with the Hollywood, the mergers, all the productions that have come, and all the cultural changes that they try to initiate, that is also a largely gray area. People that don't really talk about. Now it lasts even now. We'll get to that. So Chuck Norris went on to star in well-received action entertainers in the 80s. This you might remember. His importance kind of declined in the 90s because there are better action stars, and he was really too much with all the Chuck Norris jokes we know. And he kind of gave up his position. And Jackie Chan, however, he struggled to make a Hollywood impact in the 80s. But he became an Asian icon at the same time through many of his Hong Kong based films and kind of broke open Hollywood through a very systematic move in the early to mid 90s. So, for example, if you look at this movie called Police Story 3 Super Cop, this released in 1992, but it was trimmed down to American audience, dubbed in English, and it was re-released in the US in 1996, and it topped every chart ever. If you go and look at how this film was impactful, one can see the Americans rated it like on Rotten Tomatoes 93%. This is from 55 reviews, just 55 reviews. And some of the most recent one of the most famous reviews went like this. Now it says it was written by James Berardinelli in Real Views. So he said, as is usual in a Chan film, the end credits are one of Police Story 3's highlights. There are more laughs in this hilarious 3-minute sequence than in the Hall of Kingpin. Now he says, I can't think of a better reason to stay through the entire movie. Ultimately, the closing montage points out of one of the chief differences between Chan's stylized, fast-paced films and those of his American counterparts. And he ends the review with this sentence. He says, this is action with a smile, not a grimace. So he actually compared the action movies in Hollywood and the action that Chan brought. So he said action with a smile, not a grimace. He was not talking about the usual violent patterns of Hollywood action in the late 90s. He was talking about how action was authentic and how it was action with a smile, with action blended with comedy. Now, another review of the same movie, it goes like Chan does his own fighting and stunts. Unlike the Hollywood action contingent, Chan does not rely on cinematic trickery, CGI. Theirs are not special effects, just spectacular effects. Now, he also says connoisseurs will find Chan's helicopter train chase was riskier and more exciting and more believable than Mission Impossible and The Living Daylights. Now, this is true. When you watch that movie, you'll get to see the action as to be more authentic. Now, Quentin Tarantino, very recently also, in 2009 he said that, but in 2014 also he again said it. that Police Story 3 is one of his most favorite films, and that Super Cop it features, he quotes the greatest stunts ever filmed in any movie ever. Now we are talking about Chan's resurgence. Now, while Super Cop's cultural and cinematic influence remains undisputed, and when released in 1996 in the US as an English dubbed version, uh, one must answer the question why a sudden re-release was required. The reason is another movie titled Rumble in the Bronx. Now we are coming closer to uh, the Big Brawl. Rumble in the Bronx also got a re-release in 1996, and it got nearly 69 million US dollars, and it also remained in the top for several consecutive weeks. Now, this so by mid 90s, you have Jackie Chan as a global icon, also trying to break through the Hollywood, and he also has many movies such as The Armor of God, Super Cop, Twin Dragons, I think City Hunter. All of this suddenly dubbed and released in to the North American box office. All of them surging in demand in terms of video and satellite rights also. So again, coming back to the question, why the big brawl? So as someone who's been obsessed with Jackie Chan's filmography, I consider the big brawl as his first honest attempt at making it in Hollywood. Now, if you watch the movie, you know this. Jackie Chan was not a newbie to filmmaking in the 1980. The 1980 is the release date of the Big Brawl. It was a very hurriedly made movie. Now he had by then he had starred at least in 7 movies, and he kind of co-directed a couple of films and directed one film. And he also had set up the famous Jackie Chan stunt team in the 1976. It was not a big deal then. Now it is world famous for their you know involvement in multiple films. Now, loosely translated in Cantonese, Chan's family group is what it is called. Now, he says it would go on to make a very huge impact in the way Hong Kong films would be received everywhere a decade later. So, in 1980, he has a ragtag team and he's working on it. And the Big Brawl, it was originally titled in the US as Battle Creek Brawl. It was a joint Hong Kong and American production, and it was produced by Golden Harvest Studios, which also produced Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee's last film, which released months after Lee's death. So, Golden Harvest Studio had, in the years following Bruce Lee's death, attempted to find another actor who could act in their Hong Kong American collaborations. They had found minimal success in this actor called Jimmy Wang, and he actually came before Bruce Lee, but Bruce Lee kind of took the crown away. So Wang was kind of wallowing in pity. So he was brought back by the production company, and he reluctantly returned to the movie. And they made a movie titled "The Man from Hong Kong." This was in 1975, and it was originally conceived for Bruce Lee, but he made this film. And however, the production company later ran into a lot of losses with a few projects after that, starting with the film The Himalayan in 1977, which Jackie Chan was a supporting actor in that, but his scenes were heavily cut down, and finally it remained a cameo role. But the studio decided to back Chan later with his own directorial titled The Young Master. This is in Hong Kong. This is made in Cantonese, and this was a major success. This also released in 1980 in the beginning. So because it proved to be a money making film, they decided to give him the big role and decided to launch him into the North American market. So this the Big Brawl or Battle Creek Brawl, it kind of follows a formula that is all too familiar for an average Jackie Chan fan. So it is set in Chicago. The film opens with a fighting sequence, which gives the audience an idea about the fighting arenas in Chicago. So there's an opening fight in which unusually large man emerges as victorious, and we know Jackie Chan to be a very small fellow. So the film follows Jerry Kwan, Chinese immigrant with a white girlfriend, unthinkable. And the mob that Chicago is all too famous for demands a share in profit from Kwan's father, who runs a restaurant Kwan gets noticed while he tackles the mob outside the restaurant. He beats them up, and the mobster boss, I think his name was Dominici or something. He kidnaps Kwan's brother's fiance, forces him to be his champion at the Battle Creek Brawl, a nearly ruthless, ruleless, all-in street fighting tournament in Texas. The Kwan attempts to rescue the fiance, but he doesn't. Now, anyway, he has no option. He joins. He's trained by his uncle Herbert, who is a hardliner, and he goes. He wins the brawl. That's the story. There's nothing much to it. But after surviving the massive eliminating round, and we get to see that there's a lot of fight. He has actually toned down the fight for the American audience. He's not using all the knowledge of kung fu, and he also, I mean, the film kind of ends with happy uh, climax, but the same formula you can see has been used in Rumble in the Bronx, which brought him back to the American audience later on. The same formula. Now, why I picked this was in the 90s, in the mid 90s, when I finally got my hands on a cassette of Rumble in the Bronx. It also had uh, the Big Brawl as part of it. So I ended up watching the movie, which was made decades between them. I watched it together. So I made the connection very easily that, oh, it has the same formula, it's the same story. So let me go back. So I went and checked some of his filmography, and I saw that all of this is initial films from 1975 to 1989 to 1990. Everything follows the same kind of fixed storyline. So it's and the main idea is like he's not bringing kung fu back to the way Bruce Lee had left it. He's kind of making it something else. It's not the main theme. It may be a plot element, but it's not even considered something that's important. The Big Brawl, if it was supposed to be a launching vehicle, why is it made like this? This was the question I had. It caught my attention at that point of time. I was not able to do much of a research, but again, it's not very obviously a film that stands out for its features. It has an unimpressive cinematography. It has a predictive plot line. It has subpar acting, including Jackie Chan's. And in short, everything is not that great except the action, which is heavily toned down. But it is a film that kind of foreshadowed for me the career of Jackie Chan as someone who became a true global star. The Hong Kong film industry, it kind of transformed itself in the early 60s with new technology being used in their production. They're taking a lot from the Americans and the British. The Cantonese also made a revival. I mean, initially Mandarin was kind of the key element, but then Cantonese, which Jackie Chan speaks, it made a revival in the 70s with him coming into the arena. So even though Bruce Lee's death kind of slumped the market a little, soon the industry recovered by the mid 1980s with the philosophy of filmmaking change. With the arrival of newer writers, Jackie Chan co-wrote several of his projects. He also directed. So we see a fast-paced action with more authentic outdoor shooting and a careful utilization of the new influx of money from their massive overseas sales. Now, the Big Brawl officially became the keystone of the new age philosophy of Hong Kong film industry. Now, for me, the Big Brawl announced to the world, especially the Hollywood, that the Hong Kong studios were not afraid of investing money in a young star with ideas. This, for me, was where Jackie Chan saw how and where he should make a change. He made a pitch to direct the film, although Golden Harvest Studios thought it was better if an American was at the helm to make a film that suited to the American audience. So they hired Robert Klaus, and Robert Klaus had already made 3 films with the studios, including Bruce Lee's last movie. So, as I said, the movie foreshadows Jackie Chan's career. After his initial struggle in both the Hong Kong film industry and the Hollywood, one can see how he, with the help of the Jackie Chan stunt team, has redefined the Hong Kong film industry, directing films including Project A, Police Story, Armor of God, Who Am I, etc. in the 90s. So the real resurgence of Jackie Chan, it comes in the later half of the 90s with him shifting his focus to readapting his style to Hollywood once again. So whatever happened in 1980 without much planning, it happens with a huge plan in the later half of 1990s. So in his second coming, we have him calculating his moves more carefully, roping in A-grade actors to launch the films to reach a wider American audience. So, like for example, Rush Hour, 1998. It starred Chris Tucker, and Shanghai Noon in 2000. It starred Owen Wilson, both A-rate actors of that time, and both movies minted money at the box office, and both had Chinese storylines. Now, careful incorporation of the Chinese culture. Both had Chinese storylines incorporated into the main story, either as a plot or a background story. Both had Chan speaking his signature Cantonese. And while Reshower kind of showed him as someone well versed in English, which he's not, Shanghai Noon showed him as a Chinese immigrant getting to know the American Wild West. So both films had sequels, with Reshower having one more than Shanghai Noon, and now we hear Rush Hour 4 is in pre-production with both Jackie and Tucker reprising their roles. And then also we see films like The Tuxedo, 2002, and Around the World in 80 Days, I think 2005. Both were also American productions with, true American productions with Jackie in the lead. So we can see him becoming part of American productions without too much of Hong Kong involvement. And that is also a change. So at the beginning of 2000s, this is where I think this is something I mentioned in my Facebook post also on Jackie Chan's birthday. It says, in the beginning of 2000s, you can actually see Jackie Chan putting a very conscious effort in approaching all his approaches to filmmaking. For example, Shinjuku Incident, this is in 2009. Karate Kid is in 2010. 1911, a period drama that he directed and co-starred, is in 2011. And then you can see The Foreigner. You will not see Jackie Chan in his true form in that, 2017. And the very recent Ride On. All of these movies are kind of moved away from a typical Jackie Chan film. These are attempts that he has made. So I have always perceived Jackie more as a trained actor than a stunt artist or a performer or a martial artist that everyone thinks he is. So I think even through the many genre-defining films that he had done, the glimpses of an actor who wanted to act, experiment with stories, or even direct good stories were visible. So, the Eastern sensibility of expressing emotion had always been very strong in his films. So this is one of the reasons why I always thought some of his films can be a subject of good study. At the same time, looking at the evolution of an entire film industry. Now, if you look at Bollywood or Hollywood, it is never dependent on one actor. But in case of Jackie Chan, his contributions to Hong Kong film industry from the 1970s till now is very evident. So this is something, even with the Chinese influence getting really strong in the late 90s and the 2000s, we can see Jackie Chan remaining in the middle of all of this, kind of commanding a certain kind of way the movie industry should move on. So this is something that Big Brawl, yes, it acts as a keystone where everything starts. Yes, it's a cornerstone of all his filmography. But at the same time, it is to be taken as part of a body of work to be studied further. So this was the essence of the Facebook post. But then, you can't write everything in there. You just have to write a few things and appreciate whatever we have and then move on. So I thought, if it's very difficult to find, to be honest, it's very difficult to find someone who actually likes Jackie Chan. I mean, everyone knows him, but do you actually see his movies with a certain kind of seriousness that is required? No. But I have friends groups in which I watch movies. We sit together and watch movies sometimes. But even then, serious movies like 1911 or The Foreigner are never discussed. but far less movies have been studied by people, talked about by people. And so I always think, okay, why is that? Is it because it's Jackie Chan? No one takes him seriously because of the kind of comedic stunts that he do? Or, I mean, why exactly is it a problem when Jackie Chan himself comes out as, someone who wants to train actors in his biography, in his autobiography, actually. He has mentioned his uh, dream to train actors. So I think that part is not actually discussed at all. And when he actually puts a very conscious effort as someone who should make serious movies, and maybe that's what he said, I should make more serious movies. And he has actually done it. He has spent money. He's been a producer and a director who has approached other actors to be in the key roles, and he has taken a second fiddle or probably a cameo. He has made rom-coms. Actually, his company has made rom-coms for the young, and even in those movies, he has either not acted, probably collaborated in other ways. He has taken a different role altogether. In one movie, I think he appeared as appeared in a cameo role. So all of this together, it's something worthy to discuss. And as I said, Battle Creek Brawl or the Big Brawl, 1980. This is where all of it started. This is where someone who wanted to be part of Hollywood decided to break free and go make movies that were actually bigger than any other movie made in Hollywood of the same genre. So that's it. I think from here onwards, I guess we can discuss if you've watched the film.
Yeah, thanks, Manu. It is very rare for someone who is a fan to also bring in scholarship and your reading engagement with the entire body of work to put it into a kind of narrative for us to see the kind of transformations both in him, in Jackie Chan as an actor, but also in the entire milieu of Hong Kong Hollywood collaborative films. Thank you so much for that. My own, I have very little knowledge of this genre. And I think you're very right when you say that it's a big blind spot. There aren't too many, studies. I remember S.V. Srinivas. There's an essay by him where he talks of the Hong Kong genre and its influence on Telugu cinema.
Huh.
So which I have read. Other than that, as you said, there is hardly anyone who seems to have taken this seriously. And also the whole range of influence of this stunt comedy genre on different cinemas, including Indian cinema. I'm sure Jackie Chan has a wide following in India and also among filmmakers, film goers in India. And this is something that has really not been taken up seriously
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, so I think it's generally seen as because it doesn't have a narrative or the narrative is simply a kind of an accidental byproduct of the film. Maybe one of the reasons it is disparaged. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking aloud.
It's true.
Yeah, for me, this film was also very interesting. I mean, and I also found many, insightful things from what you said. For instance, when you said that Hong Kong films, unlike Hollywood films, you could sit and watch with your family. I remember my mother, of all people, who hardly ever watched Hollywood films, taking me to watch Enter the Dragon. I mean, I was like, why would, I mean, looking back, then of course one just went to watch it. But today when I look back, I'm like, why would she want to go and take me to watch this film? But probably, as you said, the other markers of a Hollywood film, like being sexually explicit, is not at all, one of the defining features. So maybe it was that. And also the thrill of action. I mean, the cinema in its original, I mean, in its early phase as cinema of attractions, comes alive here. It's really something that keeps you completely engaged. One has learned that one watches films because one wants to know what will happen next. Here, that's the material. And yet it keeps you kind of so glued to the screen. So these were some of my, not so, I mean, not so fan-like comments about the film, but I certainly enjoyed it. We can open it out, or if you want to come in at any point, just let us know, Manu. Geeta has unmuted. Geeta, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Manu, for that really insightful opening up of this film. My question is not exactly specifically related to this film, but generally the genre of action cinema. Underlining this genre is, the discourse of masculinity. So
yes.
I was wondering, and even if you look at women's action cinema, whether Lara Croft or any other in this genre, it's although it may be women's action cinema, still it replicates certain masculinist paradigms, like the body image and the ruthlessness and things like that. So I was just wondering if you would like to say something about masculinism in action cinema.
Especially in this genre, you can notice that Bruce Lee was a very high masculine figure, right? And that influence had kind of spread to the rest of the world. Now, if you, ma'am mentioned Enter the Dragon earlier, and there is a Malayalam movie which released in 1980. It has the same climax as Enter the Dragon. Both the hero and the villain facing each other with a lot of mirrors present, and fighting it out, bare-chested. So that kind of masculinity kind of spread. But what Jackie Chan had done is kind of tone it down a little bit. Now you will see him fighting and all that, but later, like post 1980s, he has kind of toned it down. Now, one of those movies that he directed, Armor of God. Now, it has a sequel, Armor of God Part 2, which has two female heroines, okay, two female add-ons to the previous story. Now, they do action, and they do action even better than Jackie Chan in that movie. And later on in Super Cop, you will see Michelle Yeoh, one of the most celebrated Asian martial artists, female artists. Now, Michelle Yeoh rose to fame with that role, and they don't do what a typical Hollywood action heroine does. They don't really, what is it called? Explore explore it in a sexual way. They don't go into that level at all. Action is pure action for her. So Michelle Yeoh kind of perfected it in such a way that she was cast as Bond girl along with Pierce Brosnan in 1996. I think the movie was The World Was Not Enough. World Is Not Enough. Yeah. So you can see that in that she's kind of shown in a sexual nature somewhat. But this is where the difference between Hollywood and whatever she was doing all this while until then. it kind of separates. In Hong Kong, she didn't have to do that. And Hong Kong film industry, she was very successful. But the moment she came to Hollywood, everything kind of changed. She had to do, as if she wanted to be a global star, she had to do that. Jackie Chan didn't have to go hyper masculine to become a global star, but Michelle Yeoh had to. But again, she kind of once she regains that position, she actually never does compromise it. Later on, you'll see her in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and quite a lot of Hollywood productions, but she has not done it. So I think Hong Kong film industry had its own rule when it comes to uh, you know actors being extra masculine, or maybe you can say that Jackie Chan probably rewrote those rules. Masculinity was not considered something that is important to be shown on screen. If you look at any of those cop movies with extreme action, it's not the masculine one. Jackie Chan actually presents a very vulnerable hero. He's someone who gets beaten quite a lot. He's someone who's most part of the movie, even in Battle Creek Brawl, you will see him getting hit more than he hits. He expresses pain and most often converts that for comedy. So you can see that the idea was to subvert all the masculine norms existed until Bruce Lee, and then rewrite it for different elements.
Thank you. Thank you. Now that you say it, I'm also reminded of the film A World Without Thieves, which we had discussed on TFO. There also you have this very vulnerable protagonist, who doesn't believe, a very naive person who doesn't believe in that thieving is possible. And then on the public transport, he is, beaten up and things are stolen. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for your.
That's a good film. I'm happy to discuss.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else who wants to come in at this point? Please unmute yourself so I know you want to speak. Rajan, Tarkeshwar, Madhurima. I think Tarkeshwar is in the airport, so he may not unmute himself.
And action will be a very difficult topic to discuss in the airport.
Madhurim, Rajan, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me, but I just want to know, this is a film which is focusing on the body and what the body can do, right? And it's also very subtly getting in the mind and how the mind operates. Yeah. So could you comment about it?
Sure. But most of Jackie Chan films, early on films, it's about regaining control. It's about regaining power. And you can see it is set in Chicago. It is set in the 1930s, later end of 1930s, where the Chinese are obviously shown as people who should be brought under subjugation, right? So Jackie Chan, in a way, represents an oppressed culture, just trying to gain its own space in a Chicago, which is, as you see, is based on a lot of struggles, right? His father runs a restaurant. His brother wants to start a business, but they're not able to do that because they have to share their profit with the mob. Now, the only way to get out of it is now agree to the mob, take the money, and go home. Now, the whole movie, you'll see his uncle who trains him, Herbert, he kind of makes fun of his father for being meekish, right? But he's the one who makes Jackie Chan stronger. He's the one who trains him. He's the one who gives him the courage. He's the one who pushes him to push himself further. Now, that is one way of showing that the Chinese, I mean, this is actually a continuation of the philosophy that you will see in many of the Bruce Lee films earlier on as well, that, you need to push yourself harder. It's a very stoic way of looking at life. You need to push yourself. There will be a lot of hurdles. You need to push as far as you can. Now, that is indirectly told in this. They can't get rid of that philosophy because it comes with Kung Fu. Now, they have done is, yes, they have toned down Kung Fu, but they have not toned down the philosophy behind it. Now, it's all about resistance. Now, when you see body, it's exploring, yes, it's a constant exploration of body, mind, and at the same time, a constant struggle against the oppressor. Now, in the end, it looks like, a hurriedly made happy ending, but at the same time, it's about who controls fate. That's how I saw it when I was first watching it. I was like, okay, this is how I think it is. And now, even now, when I rewatch it for, sometimes once in a while, this is what I feel. It's not like a good old victory of, good versus evil story. It's about how one gains control of one has mastery over one's own skills, and eventually end up controlling fate. Thank you for the question. It's a good one. I
Thank you.
hope I have answered it.
Yeah, you brought in a very important element, that is how the body and the mind, along with society, that's where you talked about the gang and dealing with the gang. So it's not just the body and the mind, but it's dealing with the gang and putting things in order and getting some kind of disturbance in society back again to a different kind of order, right? So thank you for that.
And that name itself, brawl, for example, brawl, it denotes chaos, right? But Kung Fu, on the other hand, what his uncle has been teaching him, it's about order, right? Even Jackie Chan is shown as a uncouth youth, but his uncle is trying to make sure that he's under control, he's in order, in shape. So it's basically a battle versus both order versus chaos.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, but it doesn't, unlike, let's say, a film like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, it doesn't wear its philosophy too heavily, right?
No, it doesn't. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is completely rooted on that mythology and the philosophy blend of it. That's the beauty of that film.
Yeah.
The action is just a drop.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else who would like to come in? Madhurima?
Yeah, I don't really have a comment because I'm not really a person who watches action films. But the only other action film I have watched is probably Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. But it was interesting to watch this film because one thing that Sarah also mentioned, that the action scenes are very different from what we are used to watch. And the other things, I also thought that it is a Hollywood film production, but the fact that it is a Hong Kong and Hollywood mixed film production, it was not known to me. So thank you, sir, for the introduction to the film. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? Yagnashri, any comments? Okay. Okay, if there are no more comments, today's been a somewhat lean attendance. I think
it's a topic.
No, I think it's the rains. Many people must have had power outages like you. Yeah, and actually people are in fact joining now at the fag end of the discussion. Yeah, so I must begin by thanking you, Manu. First of all, for asking us to watch this film because we may be familiar with contemporary. I mean, we might come across occasions to watch the recent films, but probably very few of us would have taken the trouble to go to this 1980s film and watch it. Thanks for asking us to watch this film as a kind of entry point to our discussion of One, the oeuvre of Jackie Chan films, but also this kind of Asian Hollywood collaboration itself. Secondly, I think one of the aims of TFO is also to make us watch films which we may not be so comfortable or which we are used to watching, and also to make them worth the discussion, which you have done immensely. Thank you so much. It would have been such a huge loss if you would not have joined us today. Thanks for making the special effort.
I
for
wanted
TFO.
to talk about Jackie Chan.
Yeah, no,
Thanks for
it's
giving
really
me
been
the
a
opportunity.
wonderful introduction, to the film and largely to the topic. Thanks so much, and thank you all for joining tonight. Next Saturday, same time, we'll be back with another round of discussion on cinema. So in the meanwhile, good night and have a happy weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.